Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM, another Around the League segment. I'm your guy, Boulanger. Up next, we're going to be talking about players who could be dealt on draft night, players who could be traded on draft night. So you guys know every year, you know what I'm saying, there is some surprise, excuse me, some surprise movement on draft night. And probably one of the biggest trades on draft night last year was the AJ Brown to the Tennessee Titans, which kind of set the stage for a big year for the Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts. And AJ Brown did not disappoint. He went for over 1,400 yards in last season and really solidified the move that the Eagles made. All right. We know that on draft night last year, the Baltimore Ravens traded away their number one wide receiver in Marquise Brown to the Arizona Cardinals. Um, so we understand that draft night can bring some huge surprises. And so as we enter this draft, there are several players that have a lot of buzz, a lot of trade buzz around them. And so we're going to explore some of the ones we've heard about and some of the ones the GM is identifying that could be traded come draft night. So let's go. So first player up is Courtland Sutton, wide receiver from the Broncos. Now, Courtland Sutton is somebody we should be familiar with in Baltimore. It's a guy that we were pursuing a trade for, and for some reason the deal fell through. Now, I think Courtland Sutton would have been a great addition. He's a young talent. He's big. He's physical, and he does have some speed. And so I believe that he still could be traded on draft night simply because uh, if they were willing to move him before the draft, you know, timing and situation, you know, forces the hand sometimes. And so I believe he still could be on the move. Um, And the reason why he could be on the move is financial reasons, and he's due an extension. And so he has an $18 million cap hit for this season. And so as you've seen, wide receivers get paid large amounts of money. Courtland Sutton will certainly be commanding a big payday as well. And I guess the Denver Broncos don't see fit in paying him that. They may choose just to go with a younger option in the draft. And so some fits for Courtland Sutton is the New York Giants, who we know had a good season last year, but struggled at the wide receiver position. The Texans, who traded away their number one wide receiver in Brandon Cook to the Dallas Cowboys, so they have an open spot for a veteran. Although he's a young veteran, you know, he's still, you know, not a rookie. And the Indianapolis Colts. I think the Colts have some nice young talent at the wide receiver position, but I think if they're going to go with a rookie quarterback, I think having a nice big target, a guy with good hands, a guy who can make contested catches, I think that would be suitable. So I think all three of those teams could be in play for Courtland Sutton. And I don't think it's going to take a first or a second round pick to get him. I think a third or a fourth could get Courtland Sutton, or maybe a third and a fourth, you know, so not individual picks, but, you know, coupled together. I think he would be worth that. He's a young talent, and if he could just stay, if he could just stay healthy, his potential is unlimited. So that's the first guy up. Next guy, all right, we have DeAndre Hopkins. Another guy that we are super familiar with, their name in Baltimore is this guy, a guy who's been consistently rumored to be on the move. I think it's a foregone conclusion that the Arizona Cardinals move on from DeAndre Hopkins. I think it's both age and financial reasons is the reason why they're trying to move off of him. He has a $19 million cap hit this year, and I think he has a very similar cap hit next year. And so anybody who trades for him will certainly have to rework his deal. But I certainly think he's going to be on the move on draft night. And I don't think it'll take a high draft pick. I think that the Arizona Cardinals would be willing to get off of his high salary with just a 4th or 5th round pick, because again, time on draft night is of the essence, right? And so uh I think that a deal could certainly be made for DeAndre Hopkins. Some fits are the Ravens, um, the Giants again, and the New England Patriots, and also the Carolina Panthers. So when you consider all those fits, we know the Ravens have been heavily rumored uh, to kind of be interested in him, not really pursuing him, but to be interested in him. The Giants, of course, we know that they could use an upgraded wide receiver. The Panthers and Patriots are both teams who need an upgrade at the wide receiver position. And so I think all those teams could be in play. I think my meter for his trade is right at a 9. The reason why I didn't go all the way to a 10 is simply because a team may not be willing to take on that salary. They may just wait it out and see if he gets released. And I think I forgot to look and mention it, but I think my meter for Courtland Sutton was at a 7. All right, let's keep moving. Next guy up, another wide receiver. This guy is a wide receiver for the New York Jets. The New York Jets have certainly added some wide receiver pieces. They added Alan Lazard. Of course, you know, they just brought in Aaron Rodgers, and they also added Mecole Hardman, and they got Garrett Wilson already in-house. And so it may not be room for Corey Davis. Plus, he has a high salary. So the reasons why they would be willing to trade him is financial, and they have a crowded wide receiver room. Okay. Corey Davis is a big wide receiver, has pretty good hands, pretty good speed. But sometimes he doesn't live up to his potential. You know, with his height, weight, speed, catch radius, you would think he'll be more productive, but for whatever the reason, he has not been. So I think that if he doesn't get traded on draft night, I think he could certainly be released at some point, which is another rumor associated with Corey Davis. Some teams that could be interested are the Green Bay Packers. Again, we have the Giants, who will probably make any list for wide receivers. Plus, the Giants would make sense simply because Corey Davis wouldn't have to move. Basically, he would basically play in the same city and the same location. I'll put the Ravens on here. I'll talk about the Ravens in a minute. I put the New Orleans Saints on here because they could use another veteran to go along beside an often injured Mike Thomas and the young wide receiver they drafted last year. His name slips my mind. And then I also put the Detroit Lions, who could be looking for some veteran help, as several of their receivers were suspended for gambling on the league. So the Detroit Lions certainly could be in play. And I would add the Detroit Lions as a suitor for the other 2 wide receivers as well, specifically because of their wide receiver situation out there in Detroit. Okay. Now, the Baltimore Ravens, I think, could be a suitor for Corey Davis, especially if the Jets are really willing to get off of him. I think Corey Davis would be a reasonable pickup, especially if you could get him for a 5th round pick, something like that, something that doesn't cost a whole lot. Again, like I said, he's big, he's fast, he has pretty good hands. He just isn't always as productive. But I think he would certainly slot in as a number 3 wide receiver, probably above Nelson Aguilar. And I think that would still make a good corpse for the Baltimore Ravens with Odell, Corey Davis, and Rashad Bateman. So, but again, we could the Baltimore Ravens could wait around to see if he gets released and then pursue him. Corey Davis is a guy that the Baltimore Ravens pursued a couple of years ago, but he chose to go in another direction with the New York Jets. My trade meter is at 8. So I think it's a real possibility that Corey Davis gets traded or released after the draft. All right. Next up, Khalil Mack. Now I know this may be a surprise, and I haven't heard much buzz. I did read an article concerning Khalil Mack, and that the Chargers may be willing to move on from him. They just picked him up last year in the off season. He was pretty productive last year. I think he had about 8 sacks, 50 tackles. So he's still, a premium edge rusher. And so I think that he could be made available. The only reason why I could think of is financial reasons. He has a big cap hit this year and next year, which could certainly, if a team brought him in, could certainly be reworked. Okay. But financial is part of the reason why, or the reason why Khalil Mack could be traded on draft night. And I think any team would be a fit. But more specifically, I think the Baltimore Ravens could be a fit. I think the Carolina Panthers could be a fit. And I think the Detroit Lions could be a fit. And also the Cincinnati Bengals. Um, I really don't want the Bengals to be interested in him, but any team, if Khalil Mack is available, any team would be interested in Khalil Mack. I put the Ravens on this list because we haven't had that type of guy in some time. Okay. And I think Khalil Mack, if they're willing to get off of him, but for financial reasons, they certainly may take a lower round draft pick for him. And I think, going after Khalil Mack with a 3rd or 4th round pick, I think is certainly doable for the Ravens. Of course, like I said, we'll have to rework his contract, but I think that his presence on one side of the defensive field would certainly be great for the Ravens. Is it likely? Probably not, but I certainly think he's a fit for the Ravens. The Panthers need an edge rusher on the opposite side of Brian Burns. The Detroit Lions just need help up front, and of course the Bengals, who have some cap space, who would be able to fit him under their cap space with just a little adjustment. So I think those teams could be fits. And I think my trade meter for him is somewhere around a 6. I would push it to a 7 or 8 if I had heard more news, but just a little over halfway. All right. Okay. Another guy that excuse me, that we've heard about pretty recently is Trey Lance, quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. The reason why Trey Lance would be traded is just simply because he needs a fresh start, right? And also QB Purdy. Purdy is a guy, last pick in the draft, who just stepped up and balled out, showed a lot of promise, certainly got injured. And so his injury has a huge question mark at their quarterback position. They did bring in Sam Darnold. So the room is a little crowded for Trey Lance. The San Francisco 49ers gave up a whole lot to go up to get Trey Lance, which means they must have believed in him, but he hasn't been able to get on the field. Okay. There was a couple of times in his career where he could have taken the job from Jimmy G, but just wasn't able to. And so I just think Trey Lance needs a fresh start. And I think that the San Francisco 49ers may just be willing to part ways with him, just recoup with that, whatever they can recoup. I don't think it's a 1st round pick, and it may not be a 2nd round pick because he's such an unknown commodity, but he is available from what all the rumors and talk is around the league. So he could be moved on draft night. Some fits. I put the Houston Texans, the New England Patriots. I put the Indianapolis Colts, and I put the Tennessee Titans. Let me explain all those teams. The Texans, of course, because of DeMeco Ryans, who used to be the defensive coordinator, who knows Trey Lance very well. And because Houston said that they were not drafting a 1st round quarterback, at least that's what the talk is, Trey Lance could be in play for Houston, especially because they have some extra draft capital from the Deshaun Watson trade, so they could certainly give up a third or a fourth, or they may be able to give up a second if they really trust that Trey Lance could be that guy. But Houston could be in play. The Patriots, simply because it wouldn't take much to get Trey Lance. His salary is super cheap, and it creates competition for Mac Jones, a guy I'm not sure that they really believe in. So bringing in Trey Lance could be some competition. I don't see that likely happening, but he could be an option. The Indianapolis Colts, simply because they have the 4th overall pick, but what if they could, make a move for Trey Lance, try him out for a couple of years, because that's all a rookie is, a tryout until you know what you really have. So why not try out a guy who has some experience and some potential, and trade back and pick up some more capital with that number 4th overall pick. And so I put the Colts there simply because they have a needed quarterback, and Trey Lance is certainly available. I put the Tennessee Titans. Here's why. Trey Lance has certainly showed more promise than Malik Willis. Although I'm gonna give Malik Willis a break because he was a rookie. He was in a situation last year where he was not expected to be the starter, so he probably didn't have a lot of run in training camp, and so he just didn't look ready. The Tennessee Titans are rumored to be moving on or willing to move on from Ryan Tannehill, and so I think Trey Lance could certainly be an option. Tennessee could certainly make a move for Trey Lance with a late round draft pick, and still maintain their 1st round pick and their 2nd round pick. So I think the Tennessee could be an option as well. And my trade meter right now is at a 6. Because remember, I am talking about the first night of the draft. But I think after the draft is over, that could certainly go all the way up to an 8 or a 9, depending on what the draft looks like for the San Francisco 49ers. Okay. A guy that we know well, Patrick Queen, linebacker for the Baltimore Ravens. This has kind of been a rumor, some talk since the Baltimore Ravens made a move for Roquan Smith, and then it certainly became real talk, real trade talk, when they signed him to that $100 million extension. And so part of the reason why the Baltimore Ravens would move on from Patrick Queen is because he is due an extension. He's eligible for an extension. Let me say it that way, simply because his 3rd year is complete. They've been non-committal with picking up his fifth year option, and as of most recently, Patrick Queen has scrubbed the Baltimore Ravens imagery from his social media. Don't know if that's gone back up yet, but I know that he did do that, and which always gives a sign and signal that something may be happening. Maybe his agent said, "Hey, man, go ahead and prepare," and so maybe it happens. Personally, I don't think the Baltimore Ravens should trade Patrick Queen. I think it's a huge mistake. I think trading Patrick Queen would be a huge mistake for the Baltimore Ravens, because I'm one of those people who believe that you don't create a hole that you don't have to create. And I think trading Patrick Queen, no matter who's on the roster, I know there's a lot of belief in Josh Ross. I know Malik Harrison is there, who came in at the same time that Patrick Queen came in. But the fact of the matter is, although Patrick Queen has made some mistakes and he's had some growing pains, I think that he is still a top 10 linebacker in this league, and paired with Roquan Smith, they form the best. I say that again. They form the best inside linebacker duo. I don't want to hear nothing about money, because it's not a money issue as of right now. It's not. It's not a money issue right now, because Patrick Queen is still in his rookie deal. He's not going to be expensive for his 4th year, and then if they pick up the 5th year option, it will certainly be a salary increase, but it won't be anything outlandish. And so I think that they should keep him, because the truth is, when Patrick Queen is eligible to be a full-fledged free agent, that's 2025. And like I said, the cap space explodes for the Baltimore Ravens up to $140+ million as it currently stands, based on current signings and contracts. And so I think that there's certainly money to extend him when it's time. So I don't think it makes sense to me, and nobody can make a comment that's going to make it make sense. I don't hear about draft capital. I don't, because the Baltimore Ravens have missed on more draft picks as of late than they've hit. Patrick Queen is a hit. He may not be a Pro Bowler yet, but he is certainly a solid linebacker, a well above average linebacker who can run and hit. And in fact, the truth is he's one of their best pass rushers, meaning as a blitzer. His ability to hit the AB gap is phenomenal. And when he gets to the quarterback, a lot of times he does finish, and he is also improving in pass coverage. Now, now everything that I just mentioned about him uh, would mean he would bring back some good compensation, maybe a second and a fourth, maybe a late round first. But I just wouldn't. I just wouldn't. I just don't believe you should make a hole that doesn't need to be made unless they've seen something that we haven't heard about from Josh Ross. Okay, that'd be the only way. Haven't seen enough from Malik Harrison to say that he could fill that spot. Okay, my trade meter right now is a 7, and it's probably more like to be a 9 by draft night, because I'm sure that more and more buzz is going to come out. So some fits. The New York Jets, I don't think that's going to happen necessarily, but I think that they would certainly be a fit. The New York Giants would be a fit. They definitely need some help at linebacker. I think that they would be a fit. Plus, Wink Martindale is up there, and nobody knows Patrick Queen better than Wink Martindale, right? So, so I certainly think the Giants may be on the table. He may be able to convince the Giants, hey, give up a late first, or an early second or whatever, or a second round pick to get Queen. So I certainly think Patrick Queen and the Giants could be a match. The Atlanta Falcons, who traded away their inside linebacker last year to the Cleveland Browns, so I think they have a need that may not be able to be filled in the draft. And then also the Commanders, who are always looking for good talent to continue to build that defense. So I think those are the fits. And again, my meter is 7. And as we get close to the draft night, it's probably going to be at an 8 or a 9, right? So let's do a few bonus guys. Okay. Wide receiver Keenan Allen from the Chargers. There's been a lot of talk, even back into early parts of last year, that they could be willing to trade Keenan Allen, and then that talk has got a little louder, not extremely loud, but a little louder into this season, that they could be willing to release him or trade him and go wide receiver in the first round. I think that is super possible. Again, that's another guy. Remember, this is around the league as a Ravens perspective. And so that's another guy that we could certainly be interested in if he's on the market or if he's released. Okay. Tight end, George Kittles. I think that he could be available. I think that he's super productive when he's available, but I think he's often injured. This is a super deep tight end class in the draft. This tight end class probably goes 7 to 10 deep. A lot of fast guys, a lot of guys at the combine ran 4.7 or below. A lot of guys have pass catching ability, and so I think that that could make George Kittles available. But I believe a team that would go get George Kittles, who would be a team who was a fringe playoff team last year, or a team that needs a surefire pass catcher at the tight end position. But I certainly think George Kittles could be on the market, and kind of like, I hadn't heard any buzz, but I certainly think he could be made available if the price was right. Dalvin Cook, running back from the Minnesota Vikings. Certainly heard a lot of news and rumors that he could be moved. He has a high salary, super productive guy, super productive. And a team that was attached to those rumors were the team up in New York, Buffalo. Buffalo was rumored to be interested, and so I think that they could certainly be a suitor. They've certainly had trouble running the ball for several years. They've tried different running backs. And I certainly think Dalvin Cook offers them a solid running back, high price, but a solid running back option if he's certainly available on draft night. And I think that a lot of these guys could be moved on draft night, because, like I said, timing is everything. When a team is on the clock or a deal is on the table, you don't have weeks to make a decision. You have to make that decision basically in a matter of 15 minutes, because that's the time that you're on the clock. So you have to consider the pick you're going to make and what's going to be left in, in your draft capital. Devin Duvernay, wide receiver from the Baltimore Ravens. Sorry, it's not DN Duvernay. That's a mistake. But I think Devin Duvernay could be on the move. Devin Duvernay is owed $4.5 million in cap this year. He is a free agent at the end of the year. And I don't know if the Baltimore Ravens will pony up the money to retain him. I think Devin Duvernay has a lot of potential that's been untapped. He has deep speed. He doesn't track the ball well, but he has a lot of deep speed. He is a great kick returner and punt returner. And so I think that drives his price up. I think that he's not going to go any less than $8 to $10 million per year. And I do not think the Baltimore Ravens are willing to give him that for a special team specialist and a third or fourth receiver. So I think he could be available on draft night. And then also Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is a guy who's rumored to be available earlier in this offseason. He's still with the Tennessee Titans, but a lot of times where there is smoke, there is fire. And I think of a team who wants to make a splash at the running back position, this may be the way to do it, especially if you're trying to go for it all in a 2-year span. So Derrick Henry could be another surprise at on draft night. So those are my selections. Let me know what you guys think about that list. Let me know if there's somebody that you think that could be made available around the league or as a Baltimore Ravens. Super interested to hear from that. And we'll certainly discuss it. I'm your guy Boulanger. This is the GM, and I'm out.